Hi, everyone. I'm Martha Dykeman, your Executive Director here with Jason Giese from Jasper Eco Development to do another developer update. We are excited to provide a little bit of knowledge, information, a little bit of history about your community and your home. And I just want to say thank you to Jason and to learn a little bit from you.
Sure, no problem.
Great. We did receive a series of inquiries from our residents that we included as a part of this conversation today. So many of your questions will sound familiar based on what we received from our residents, which is a great opportunity to really tap into kind of what's on our residents' minds and get some insight from you too as well, Jason.
Sure.
One of the things that we're excited to talk about is kind of the history of Jasper and the totality of the master plan community. So can you talk a little bit about what really goes into building and developing a master plan community?
Yeah, the public doesn't see, they start to see phases of a subdivision much years after a subdivision is born, so to speak, from a legal perspective. So the history of Jasper is that in 2013, we took title to a 15,000 acre ranch. Jasper is approximately 1,200 acres in the far southeast corner of that 15,000 acre ranch. And so in 2014, we went through an annexation rezone process because the Jasper is now part of the town of Prescott Valley. At the time, it resided in Yavapai County. And so we were annexed the two sections of land, basically approximately 1,200 acres into the town of Prescott Valley. And it was approved for, if memory serves, 3,450 dwelling units over the course of time. And so for folks to have a feel from a real estate guy's perspective, the general rule of thumb in a major metro area is about 1,000 units a decade. And the reason that might seem a little bit low to people, especially when we talk about unit counts here today, but you have to factor in recessions and slow times. It's not always easy going. Development is subject first and foremost to macroeconomic problems or good times. And as we sit here today in this market window, it looks like we're heading into a recession. That's my opinion. So we would expect our sales to slow down as a result. So in 14, we annexed and the project was approved by the town of Prescott Valley for 3,450 units. Our job then is to develop the project in accordance with that approval. If the market shifts and we want to bring a different product type that isn't part of that original approval, then we have to get a rezone, and it goes back through an exhaustive public process to include neighborhood meetings. And generally speaking, a rezone could take anywhere from 6 to 18 months, depending on if it's controversial or not. And so our goal is to stick to our original approval as closely as possible, because then we don't have any extra work that needs to be done with the town of Prescott Valley outside of the engineering and permitting of each phase and then the construction of those phases. We started phase 1 in November of 2017. That's 362 lots, which are generally built upon presently, not all occupied as of yet. And in 2018, we acquired through an option on town of Prescott Valley's water, all of the water capacity to service all of Jasper for all time. So I bring that up because water is a hot button issue in the state of Arizona right now. There are folks in central Yavapai County, not just the town of Prescott Valley, that are very, very concerned about water. And so Jasper Eco Dev holds an option against all the water necessary to build out Jasper at its max density. Practically speaking, in my experience, 3,450 is probably going to turn into something like 3,000, maybe in the best case scenario. When you factor in drainage, there's more open space on Glassford Hill than the original approval, park, streets, sidewalks. it just eats up density. The clubhouse, I think, is sitting on 11 or 12 acres as well. So that obviously those aren't lots. So generally in development, the overall approval for the density versus the actual net yield off a piece of land is smaller. And so moving forward, in 2020, we opened phase one. Obviously, in the middle of COVID, that was interesting, but it worked out. 2021, we ended up starting phase two, which is now completed, and the houses are starting in phase two. And then 30 days ago, we started phase three of Jasper. So we're moving forward aggressively because we believe that market demand is in our favor, even though there is a recession looming, let's say. And the lead time, phase three, we'll use an example. We expect that to be about an 18-month build. And so, start to finish until we're actually building lots or building houses on finished lots for the whole phase, about 18 months. We can probably get to the first houses to start in roughly a year, depending on how things go. What are those things? Generally, it's Mother Nature. It'll be monsoons. Do we have another big wet winter? All of Mother Nature tends to delay us, never cut down the timeline.
Sure.
So that's the history of the project and takes us up to date as to where we're at today. I'm sure we have plenty of residents that are concerned or curious about what's going on with phase three, because it's under construction. And part of phase three, you'll certainly ask me about Jasper Parkway South, because everywhere I go, I get asked about Jasper Parkway South. And our goal is to have the road finished and paved by Christmas. If we have a light monsoon season, we might finish early. And if it's a heavy monsoon season, it might be February or March. And so the goal and the timeline for connecting to Highway 69 that we're targeting is Christmas of this year.
You definitely mentioned some of the things that are of interest of this community, Jasper Parkway. You also mentioned kind of open spaces, and I'm curious as it relates to the development agreement, what are some of those requirements that the town of Prescott Valley said this has to be met in order to enable you to be developing a master plan community?
There's really two types of, I'll call it open space in my world. You have natural or native open space, acreage that doesn't get touched. And then you end up with, and people might argue this with me a bit, but like parks. So a dog park, a pocket park, a community park, parks of different types that would be an improved form of open space, in my opinion. And so as it relates to the open space on Glassford Hill, I don't have the amount of acreage at the tip of my tongue, but I know that there was a significant increase in the amount of land that is being left untouched on the toe of the slope on Glassford Hill. And the reason that we're doing that is frankly, it's too expensive to build on the hill. And then we're concerned with our finished product around here. We spent $4.7 million on landscaping alone in phase one. And so I don't think I need to explain that from a strategic perspective. We're trying to look different than our neighbors and not just in Prescott Valley. That would be Central Yavapai County. And so we end up with more generous open areas between banks of lots, walking areas for folks. And then in addition, we have the native, I don't want to call it a set aside, but we'll easily meet the requirement for native open space as it relates to the development agreement. And then the second piece of that in Prescott Valley's land development code, we're required to have, I'll call it active, a park, something that folks can use for their enjoyment. And so throughout the lifetime of Jasper, we'll be developing different forms and by way of example, a hiking trail that connects through Jasper over to the Iron King Trail. That trail counts as a form of improved open space because it's allowing people to utilize what's in the area. And we're spending money, obviously, to provide that. Those hiking trails, where past experience, you have people say, well, are they public or are they private?
Mhm.
And so my best guess is as time goes on, we'll end up with both. But presently, if someone's on the Iron King Trail and they want to walk in on our sidewalk with our multimodal path, that's what Prescott Valley calls it, they're certainly invited to do so.
Mhm.
And so as time goes on, things will fill out and change. But on a project this size, we'll easily meet our minimums. I guess I'll put up an advertisement. So in phase 3, there will be a public trailhead. That's part of the construction. The trailhead will be constructed by us, Jasper EcoDev. And then at completion, it will be dedicated to the town of Prescott Valley for future maintenance. And the reason that we're doing that is twofold. One, right now there's cars parked in the ditch in Granville, but there is not a proper trailhead or a parking lot. And if it rains and it's muddy or whatever, it's just not. It's an eyesore to us, being totally honest. It's on our entry. And we would much rather bring people in, have them park in a designated area, have a place to meet up with their friends, whether they're going biking or hiking or going for a run, a place that they can rally, so to speak, and then go do their thing. And we want it controlled as well, because I'm sure residents have noticed that from time to time, we have cars parked in odd spots.
Mhm.
Well, those are people that don't want to park down in a bar ditch in Granville. And so, my memory recalls about 60 parking stalls. There'll be bathrooms there, there'll be water there, some form of shade structure where people can, again, gather and get organized. And so that's a great example of public benefit that's required by our development agreement, that services the community, really the county, right? Or someone can come from Phoenix, as well as our residents. So I'll talk real estate all day long. I like talking about real estate.
What strikes me is just the intentionality and what I know about Jasper Eco Development, about being good stewards of the land, about looking at ways to benefit the community, about creating a unique product, but one that, meets the needs of this area. And I think you just demonstrated all of those things, and that you've really taken the time to be building that into part of the plan, going above and beyond what was initially required in the development agreement.
There are multiple aspects of Jasper that I can point to that are not required by the land development code, from various forms of landscaping to connectivity to public trails. We see Jasper as hopefully the finest subdivision in the town of Prescott Valley. That's our goal. Our architecture is obviously different. The money that's been spent on the club, the level of finish, it's all on purpose. And we'll hopefully, it's worked so far. Hopefully it will continue to work.
Thanks for sharing that. You spoke a little bit about the investment. So far you spoke to the 4.7, if I had that correct, with landscaping, and that might be something to touch on too, that our residents might be interested to learn. If you look at so far since 2013, kind of what that financial investment has been in this community, could you paint a little bit of a picture for our residents to kind of understand all of that investment?
Sure. To date, obviously, you let me know that you answer this question, so I am prepared. To date, the number is either spent or in the process of being spent, approximately $152 million. And so what does that include? It includes 2 sections of land, the land that is Jasper, approximately $25 million worth of water, clubhouse that ended up costing $16.4 million by the time we were done. Phase 3, which is under construction, is a $35 million phase. And that doesn't include the off-site portion of Jasper Parkway, which is another $6.5 million. So we're in a weird spot, and it's not at all normal. Normally, a project of this scope would be undertaken by a public company. Or a very large private. Folks probably would be familiar with the Shea Trilogy brand. And so the Shea family is a very wealthy family out of Southern California, and they operate like public home builders do. The point is that we probably have 300 residents if we're lucky presently, and we've spent 152 million or are in process of. Put it to you this way. In 18 months, we will have spent 152 for sure. We will have actually spent more. And so we're not normal. And that's a direct benefit of our majority owner, Stuart Swanson, and his ability to finance things as well as his risk tolerance. So it's abnormal as far as the dollars invested, but where it's really abnormal is people don't take these risks. And so for me personally, it's been a ton of fun. It's a labor of love because I'm 27 years in Prescott in real estate development, or Central Yavapai County, I guess I should say. And opportunities like this just don't happen.
Right.
Very, very lucky.
Exciting to kind of hear what's been created. I think you touched on something that's of interest, knowing you spoke to the, total investment, which we get often asked by residents, what would be a situation where the membership dues or fees might potentially increase? And there's an understanding there isn't a crystal ball that, gives an accurate prediction
Sure.
as to what to expect. And maybe a better way to frame this question is, what would be a way that would enable membership dues to sustain or maintain where they're currently at, that 150 a month that our residents are paying? And then maybe you can also speak to where might there be fluxes or what might actually impact that.
Well, the 150 adjustment, I don't think we have to go back and rehash the history of it, but it's in direct proportion to the cost overruns to actually construct the building.
Mm-hmm.
The cost overruns were a result of COVID, supply chain, labor shortages, the whole market, whether you were building a clubhouse or a Ford F-150, everything went through the roof. And so we rebalanced the club dues based on the actual cost of the facility. The answer to your question is, our goal is not to turn this into a big profit center. Our immediate goal as it relates to the club, because when we take the club, the food and beverage,
Mm-hmm.
and then the shortfall in the HOA on an annual basis, because again, we only have approximately 300 people paying into the system, that operating loss for our company this year combined will be about $1.25 million. We knew that was going to happen. We accept that risk. The first thing that we're looking to do is get to a break even on ops across the board. The next thing that we'll need to do is, following our reserve study for this building, we'll need to set aside money so that when a pool needs to be redone, or a parking lot, or just simply wear and tear and paint and flooring, we've tried to build a building that will wear as best possible,
Mm-hmm.
but that doesn't mean that there won't be maintenance items that need to be addressed throughout its lifetime. So get to break even, accumulate fat, money in the bank, so that we can take care of the maintenance and keep our facility in as tip-top shape. That's our goal. And what makes all of that work is density. So the club was designed by an architecture firm that specializes in designing clubs for master plan communities. It wasn't Jason and Stuart, doodling it out on the kitchen table. The scope or scale of the club is for approximately 1,500 occupied dwelling units. So Prescott Valley, per the last census, the average occupancy per household is 2.3 people per household. So everybody can do the math there. Then you get into, an interesting phenomenon. There are always people that buy in a master plan community that don't actually use the amenity. We have some folks, I'm sure, that use it every day and they love it. There's other folks, I'm guessing they have never shown up here. It's aspirational. It has to do with the value that they bought into. The grandkids are going to come see me, or our friends come and we have something to go do. They like that. And everybody looks at it from a resale perspective and says, okay, what happens in a master plan community that's fully amenitized? Units cost more to buy, to enter the market, but they also resell for more when people exit. And so it's multifaceted, but back to the folks that don't use the facility. Let's say we're at 1,500 occupied homes someday. That's not a cap, that's a target, because if 17% of those 1,500 people don't use the club and it's not stuffed, well, then you can obviously put more people into it. Into the future, what will happen, and the way that Jasper's always been envisioned, is there'll be a second amenity it'll be to the north and west of the current clubhouse location. There's another great location for an amenity. The question becomes, what is that amenity? The answer will be from our customers. We don't need more pickleball courts, or we do. How come you don't have sand volleyball? We're not building a golf course, that. It becomes a situation where we listen to our customers, and to the best degree possible, we try to address we look at that as an opportunity to do good by our customers and take care of them. And then the last thing I'd end with on that subject is it will be a situation where if you are in Jasper, you would go to the amenity that you want to go to.
Sure.
And so how does the money work? Scale is all of our friends. It's my friend as well as the first person that moved in. How does inflation go in the marketplace? Who knows? None of us know that. That's all our risk. But I understand and don't look forward to raising dues. That's not the big goal. Conversely, in this world, do we see dues going down? I'm just going to say very, very doubtful.
Right.
I wish I didn't go to lunch and pay $42 at Colts yesterday for 2 hamburgers. I don't think it's getting cheaper. I wish fuel was cheaper. I wish a lot of stuff. But at the end of the day, I don't want to make light of it, but I want to be very honest and direct. To think that club dues are going to go down over the course of time is the proverbial 1% chance, in my opinion. I don't see any of my costs running this business going down on a month-to-month basis right now, and they've only been climbing for the last 4 years.
That, I think, context that you provided is super helpful for folks to understand too. And so I appreciate you giving us a bit of that additional detail. What came up for me as you were talking is we obviously know there's certain phases in Jasper that are exempt from the requirement to pay into the amenity. Can you speak a little bit to the plan and kind of the thoughtfulness around that decision making?
It's been super interesting, actually. So the original thought process is that east of Jasper Parkway extended. The Jasper Parkway basically runs our eastern, not on our border, inside our land, but runs north to south throughout the project. We have 3,450 units approved, right? So if we think that about 1,500 units fills up this club facility, there's the potential for overcrowding, one. But really the focus was to create a buffer between ourselves and Grandville. I'll try to be as polite as possible. This project, from a conventional perspective, has no marketing window. Our first marketing window will be when we have signage on Highway 69 at Jasper Parkway, which will occur so that people know at the Stone Ridge traffic signal present. So to the south at that intersection will be Stone Ridge Drive. To the north will be Jasper Parkway. We'll have monument signage on our corner. And that will be the first time that someone can just be driving through the community and see what's Jasper. never heard of it before. I still meet people that don't know where Jasper is, which is fine. I see that as good. But Jasper Parkway basically traverses the whole project on the east side, and between Jasper Parkway and Granville property line, we felt the need to have a buffer. And so what am I talking about? I'm talking about from a price point perspective. If we could build a cheaper house, because the house and the lot, when it's sold to the buyer, it's a combo package, right? You can't buy lots, you can buy a house. So if we have a cheaper unit available to folks with an option to join our club until such time as we're full, and then that option will go away, that made sense from a marketing perspective. Interestingly enough, what we're seeing is because someone buys a cheaper house, doesn't mean they have less money. And right now in phase 2, the smaller houses in the area that you're talking about that Capstone Homes is building, I believe every one of those buyers intends to buy a membership. Into the future, what that person or person is going to have to do, they'll have to sell their house over there if they want to absolutely be in this community and enjoy all the amenities.
Sure.
So that's on purpose. We're trying to create, it's a menu. You know, you've got to have some chicken wings and some cheeseburgers. And so that's what we're trying to accomplish. So far, we're accomplishing the cheaper price point, but everybody wants to be a member of the club. I didn't expect that. I expected that those folks would not want to be a member of the club. But that tells me that we're selling the club at a value that, you know, they have to pay more than a Jasper proper resident. They're seeing it as a value. One of the first customers came from Prescott Lakes in that subdivision. And, you know, we've been waiting actually for folks around the marketplace to move into Jasper. I think that it's just taken a long time because we haven't marketed anything and we're not visible. We have no marketing window for people to find us, stumble in. And then the other thing is traditionally, the amenity gets built quite a bit later. It doesn't get built in conjunction with the phase 1. And so people, you know, maybe they heard about the club and heard about the lifestyle that we built. Wander over here and go, holy cow, I didn't know this. And you know, how they make a decision. Because from a conventional perspective, nobody from Prescott would move to Prescott Valley. You know, that's history. Sure. And so that was one of the, I guess, barriers that we were looking to break through with our concept here is that, you know, it's Century Alpine County. It's not Prescott Valley or Prescott. And a new resident listening to this goes, what the hell is it talking about? Sure. They don't. But there's a huge rivalry historically. And we've been successful in piercing that rivalry. And that's something we're very proud of, actually. You know, there's not a gate on this community. Why? We don't like them. Now, I'm not going to tell you that there will always never be a gate, but if we will default to no gates versus gates, that's not conventional. If you're going to sell a house for $1 million in Northern Arizona, it's behind a gate. Ours aren't. We're proud of that. We're different.
It is really fascinating to see what's been created, and I love that you touched on too, just knowing that history and nuance to Prescott versus Prescott Valley.
Sure.
And we are starting to see folks new to the community that are moving here to Prescott. So I think it's exciting, and I think it's a trend that we'll continue to see as we get more traffic continuously at the club. So it's exciting to see. One of the things that you mentioned is kind of offering a menu of items, and I think that relates to this next question around amenities. So one of the amenities that gets well utilized by our residents is the dog park. And so there's been questions around the ability to utilize the dog park when it comes to the rain season, which I know is shortly, you know, this year's been a little bit of a, but going to be upon us here soon. And I know the dog park, I don't know if it's been a thorn in your side, but there's been some things that have had to be updated and some learnings. And so I'd love if you would spend a couple minutes kind of touching on specifically that
Sure.
one amenity.
I think the dog park, because it is a popular amenity, you know, people are very aware that we've had to retrofit and add drainage to that call it structure to the dog park. And frankly, that's going on in phase one in different places, but people aren't as aware of it.
Sure.
So what happens very simply is everything gets engineered. We build it per the plans. Most of it works great. And then there's some stuff that just doesn't. This is normal. And so the dog park, what the issue has been is the ability to move the water through the system, get it out. It's sat too long. So we've spent money and we're hopeful that we've improved the situation quite a bit. Might not be perfect, we'll find out. You know, we get our first real rains and we get real water coming through the system and we'll find out. And we'll go look at it just like everybody else, because that's what we do, and go, working pretty good. Not there yet. So the goal with the dog park is to get the water in, hold it up. It is a detention structure. Hold up the water, let water meter itself out. We're all on the side of a hill. So water's coming through the subdivision at various points. That's just one of them. And it, in theory, should be held up and metered out and gone. It shouldn't sit. The problem with the dog park is the water has been sitting. And so we'll continue to work on that issue until we get it to the point where it works as best it possibly can. You know, can I guarantee anybody that it's fixed? The answer is no. Can I guarantee people that we've spent money and time in order to work towards that fix? The answer is yes. We get our first 1.5 inch monsoon that comes in 45 minutes. We'll know.
Well, I think you touched on a good point too, that obviously the dog park is so visible and so utilized that obviously it becomes kind of a hot button topic.
Sure.
That people are really curious about. Some of the things that people may not be seeing, and backpedaling a little bit, but I'm curious around kind of the planning and sequencing as it relates to the different phases. So you spoke a little bit about phase 3, you spoke a little bit about what's happening with Jasper Parkway. We obviously know phase 5 is kind of next on the list, and then 4 from there. But, you know, obviously there's sequencing and a cadence and a greater, so maybe you could speak a little bit to how that gets impacted and what does the next 12 months kind of hold for Jasper as a whole?
In a perfect world, phase 3 is under construction. Phase 3 is heading up the shoulder of Glassford Hill. Phase 3 is premium inventory. And so that's great. We're excited about premium inventory. We really like it. At the same time, what we'd like to be delivering is not so premium inventory, more standard, more vanilla in nature. When you're managing an asset like this, you're managing the velocity. How fast are we selling things and turning dollars over? As well as, you know, the opportunity to sell things that you only get to sell like one time in the lifetime of a development. So I don't have a phase 3 bank of lots, which is about 270 lots. I have one more bank of lots like that, and that's phase 4. So in a perfect world, we would sell phase 3 slower, and frankly, the market will probably dictate that for us. We won't have to do anything. And phase 5, to the north would be more speed, affordability, price point. And so I don't know why it bothers people, the sequencing thing. I think it's comical, but what we'll continue to try to achieve is to sell premium with velocity to the best extent possible. We're entering a credit crunch presently. We're working on getting the financing put together for phase 5. It is permit ready. The water has been taken down, purchased, paid for, I guess is the best way to state it. It's ready to go. But we have lenders right now that, you know, they're just not quite so confident, and with good reason. And so at our earliest the earliest point possible, we will start the construction of phase 5. Phase 4, then, this is where the sequencing thing comes in, which is the southwest corner of Jasper. Phase 3 is really good. Phase 4 is probably the best piece of raw dirt in the whole map. It's unbelievable. We'll see how fast phase 3 sells before we bring phase 4 on. Because again, phase 4, it will be expensive.
Yeah.
It's forever views. It's presumptively going to be up. Both phases will be up against Glassford Hill State Park if Prescott Valley, Prescott, and Yavapai County purchase the land that they've. I guess it's been probably 9 months now, but the public has known that the governments have banded together in the area to purchase Glassford Hill. That auction is supposed to happen in August. So you'd be up against permanent open space, you have permanent giant views, you have easy access to the Iron King and then into the regional trail system. It's a premium piece of ground. So we don't want to bring that to market and then, just kind of sell it.
Yeah, there's just so much strategy, right? And so much to consider. And, I'm taking notes of, it could be a future, developer update. We talk about the market.
Sure.
Right? Because that's obviously a big part of this conversation kind of in the background. I'm curious, is there other, topics, things that you want to address right now for residents, things that you want them to know that we haven't already covered?
Well, a minor one would be like the Little Dog Park. That would be a great example of us listening. And when we go into the next amenity or a pocket park type opportunity, that's an opportunity to make some people happy.
Sure.
Someone will invariably call and say, well, I want the Little Dog Park in the Big Dog Park location. I recognize that. I've been doing this for a while. But that's something that we haven't talked about, but you brought up with me previously. And, can we get a Little Dog Park as part of the program? You bet. When exactly? Don't know. It'll be market driven more than anything else.
Playground kind of in that same vein.
Playground, we just, the cold hard truth is we were so far over budget that some things just had to wait.
Sure.
We're aware of the desire for a playground. We'd love to have it out there. Goes back to operating losses of $1.25 million. This year, we'd like to see that playground in place sooner versus later, but I'm not going to give it any kind of timing. The other thing that we're working towards is heating on the pools. And so it's clear that it's a weird year. It hasn't heated up here like normal. So as a result of it, the big pool has not been used like it was envisioned to. So we've got pricing coming this week, but we're heading towards spending money on heating the pools, I guess the pool.
Right. The other
second pool. Because we see that as a priority over something like a swing set or a little dog park.
What are you most proud of as it relates to Jasper?
Probably just survival. There's no way for anybody to understand how I've been in this experiment, let's call it, for 13 years now. If someone would have sat down with me, 4 years ago, I was sitting in a clubhouse that was just a piece of dirt on a ranch. And now it's actually a clubhouse. It's hard, it's difficult. Development doesn't make you popular anywhere in the United States of America. So very used to that side of things. But when you get to drive into a project that you played a role in and help build a team around, and this wonderful winter we had, all of our landscape has grown over time. So every morning when I drive in, I see it and I go, man, what's it going to look like when it's mature? The club parking lot is a great example. Not mature landscape. Yeah, if we get great rain, it'll look great next year. If we don't, it could take a couple of years. But as things really start to come together, the vision from the architecture to the landscaping and landscape maturing, and And being able to have a club facility that just is not at all normal at this stage. And then have it be something that we're super proud of. You know, our club is finished, meaning, yeah, we were way over budget, but we didn't chicken out and not finish it. You know, you don't have cheap loungers at the pool or tables. I mean, we chowed down on it. We said, you know, this is a long-term investment in our future, and we're gonna do it right from the beginning. And I owe a great debt of gratitude to Stuart Swanson because he was with me on it. But just to survive to this point, when we started this project, a competitor made the comment to an official at the town of Prescott Valley that we were crazy. We didn't need to do what we were doing, and he was going to buy our project from the bank. So that's like milking my Wheaties every morning when someone's talking smack like that, right? But here we are, and we're proud of it.
It's exciting to see the community that's come to life just over the last 6 months. And I think it'll be super exciting, to your point, to see years down the road, you know, what continues to flourish. Flip side of that, and the last question I had for you, what keeps you up at night?
Failure. I mean, at the end of the day, I wake up scared every morning because there's so many different facets. Let's use a great example. Food and beverage at Jacob. I'm not a food and beverage guy, right? We've taken a risk. We subsidize that risk to the tune of about $50,000 a month. Because we wanted to have, you know, good to great food. Wanted folks to be able to have a beer and wine, and we look forward to whenever we can get a liquor license, because we will buy the first one available. Luckily, we bought the food and wine license probably 3 years before we even started the club. One just came up. It's hard to get, you know, you wouldn't think of that. Like, why can't you think anybody could go get one, right? In this day and age. But that's not how it works. So just failure. I mean, it can happen at any level. It will happen. There will be problems. They will need to be fixed. We will lose money. There will be bad times when we're scraping along. And then there's good times too, but it's always a balance in at my desk to balance fear with, you know, the positive thoughts about the future and making good plans that get executed years after the decision was made. The public actually sees it play out on the ground. And so my job generally is to stay 5 years ahead of the company, where we are publicly, and that's super fun for me. But it can be, you know, can be absolutely nightmarish at times. You know, as a great recession survivor, you can't see the scars on my body, but they're there mentally. And you know, we're always trying to budget and plan for a downside scenario, and then, you know, be positive and push for you know, an upside type or a stretch type of result. And that's how we run the company. And the company is very small, which is great. But that, you know, there's just not a day that I don't drive to the office, and, you know, there's always something bothering you or a problem that needs to be fixed. And but you have to turn those into opportunities. So that's what we try to do. Our goal.
I appreciate your transparency, vulnerability, your candor, and most of all your time, because I think it's been super informative. Our listeners will really appreciate all you shared today. Thank you.